Here. So welcome everyone. Today is the 13th of October, and this is our first speaker in our bug user group series on project engineering tricks of the trade. And so we have here Sam Enmark from Querying Corporation, as well as Carrie Rentz and Garrett. And Garrett, I'm not going to pronounce your name because I'll probably mess it up. So it's Garrett B here. He can jump in.
Oh, fine.
So the three of them are here. Sam is actually slated to speak tonight, so I for sure want to welcome him. He's a project manager here at Querying Corporation. So it's a great privilege to have them partnering with us in our bug group series, and just they've been doing this for a number of years, so we're very honored to have them helping us with the speakers as well. So I want to welcome them, and I also want to welcome all the students that are here. So Sam, Garrett, and Carrie, we've got students here. You can look in the chat to see all the classes that they're coming in here for and from, so you can see those that they're joining us with. So we have a good group here tonight, and I look forward to I'm letting some people in. I can't multitask here. So I look forward to having all of you guys contribute and ask questions. Sam said that he's, you guys are more than welcome to ask questions as he goes along. So I would encourage you to do that. If you feel uncomfortable, you can type your question in the chat. I just ask you, if you do speak, to make sure you put yourself back on mute again so we don't get extra audio here, okay? So before we start, I just wanted to mention a little bit about our bug user group. For those of you that haven't come before, we do have some group leaders here, and we'll introduce them. And then maybe Sam can introduce the folks at Querying after that. So our bug user group is a professional and a student organization that actually, it's a user group for Bluebeam. So we do have professionals that come in, but most of our users are students. And so I want to welcome all of you. This is a great opportunity. It's housed at Cal State University, Fresno. We're one of the biggest user groups, in, I want to say, the university system across the country. So it's been something that has been very powerful and useful, and really kind of like cutting edge for the universities in the academia environment. So we're very pleased to be able to continue this year after year and get new speakers and such. So I do want to mention that. So we do have some leaders here today. Let me go ahead and introduce them. So maybe those of you that are leaders can put your web cameras on. And those of you that are not, feel free to put your web cameras on so the speakers can see you as well. But let's go ahead and introduce, it looks like Liza's here. Liza, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself so that Sam and Carrie and Garrett can get to know you too?
Sure. Sorry, I can't have my camera on. It's on the floor at the moment. But yeah, my name is Liza. This is my 5th year at Fresno State, my last year as well. I've been a part of the Bluebeam user group for 2 years already, and I serve as the administrator for the group. And yeah, I mean, what else can I say about Bluebeam? It's a great program, and I'm sure most of you know that already.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Nice to meet you, Liza.
Thanks, Liza.
Yep.
Jose Gutierrez, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So hey everybody, I'm Jose Gutierrez. This is actually my 2nd year as well. But last year I was shadowing somebody, so this is my first official year. And I'm also a senior, going to be graduating in May 2022. And I really like Bluebeam because it's pretty much like the main software that we use in the construction industry. And it's pretty important too.
Well, thanks, Jose. It's good to have you here. And I'm just looking here. looking at all the people that we have here. It looks like Jaime's here from our leadership team. So Jaime, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Jaime. I'm due to graduate on the 2023 on May. Last year, when I had a Christie for CM 150, they really encouraged me to join Bluebeam. So I went to a couple of the speaker events and really learned a lot. So pretty excited to be part of the group.
And Jaime, you actually came from civil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's kind of transferred over to, we got him switched over to, we got him right side up.
Brought him to the light side.
Yeah.
So it's good to have you, Jamie or Jaime. I have girls that are named Jamie, and then I've got guys that are Jaime. So sorry, Jaime.
It's okay.
So let's see here. We also have Jared, it looks like, from our leadership team. So Jared, I don't know, sometimes you kind of have spotty internet. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and speak, feel free.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hi, my name is Jared. I'm a senior at Fresno State. I anticipate graduation in the fall, construction management major, and I joined Bug officially, was it last year at the end? So it doesn't really count. This is my first year really doing it. I can't turn my camera on because I'm on my PC and it does this, and I don't know why. So normally if I had my laptop, I had my camera on, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and message me in the chat.
Yeah, and Jared actually, he's working at an internship right now, and we want to tell Queering where you're working.
This summer I interned with New England Sheet Metal and Mechanical.
Oh,
I don't know if you
cool.
guys know Joshua or not. Joshua Wilkinson, but yeah, he's been working with Joshua, so.
Nice. Sam, I think they're out at Valley Children's quite a bit, aren't they? Are they still out there?
Yeah,
They
we're
are.
at,
Yeah,
we're at Valley Children's, Pontiac buildings. I'm trying to think of any of the other projects that we're working for you guys on.
They're a great outfit. It's a lucky internship opportunity you got there.
I worked out at Madera Community Hospital.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been working on a job with Valley Children's with Freddie.
Yeah, Freddie is one of our in-house mechanical engineers that does a lot of our DB work.
Yep, he's a fun guy.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Well, good to have you. And I'm glad some of our leaders are here. So those of you that have not been a part of the Bug group can kind of get to know who's our leaders. So it's something that we will be actually recruiting new leaders in the winter. We don't typically recruit in the summer. Sometimes we do, it just depends, but most of the time we like to recruit in the winter. So as we go through this, if this interests you and you want to come on to the leadership team, feel free to do so. And it looks like I didn't get to Christina. So Christina, you want to introduce yourself? She might have stepped away, so we can catch her maybe at the end. Christina, actually, she is on our leadership team as well as the ABC building construction team, which I advise as well. So she's pretty busy a lot of the times and does grading for me. So she might have stepped away just to get a snack or something. So we'll try and get her at some point, maybe at the end too. So, okay, so let's turn it over to you guys, Sam and Carrie and Garrett. Maybe you can introduce yourself, Sam, and then Carrie and Garrett can do a quick little introduction for those that haven't met them as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all the introductions and thank you for having us. It's a really cool opportunity to get to speak to college students. I loved it. I would have loved something like this when I was in school. So I think it's an awesome opportunity. So yeah, hello everybody. My name is Sam Enmark. I am a project manager for Clearing General. Unfortunately, I was going to try to not lead with this, but I'm going to lead with this. I did not go to Fresno State, but I have been born and raised in Fresno. I went over to Carrie's neck of the wood for a few years and now I'm back. So I'm happy to be here. I started off after school at a larger general contractor down in Southern California, decided that really wasn't for me, kind of came back to the Fresno area, found querying, and I've been here for about 5 years. Started off technically as a project engineer for querying, moved my way up to an assistant project manager, and then now it's a project manager. So kind of gotten to experience a breadth of positions at the company, which has been good. I've had roles in pre-construction, roles on projects. I think, and Garrett, don't hold me to this, but I think I've even estimated a job. So I think I've got a little bit of experience across the board there. As far as Bluebeam goes, Bluebeam is really just kind of coming into its own when I was in school. So I had maybe one class in it. How I really learned it is one of my project managers was the document control specialist for a $4 billion hospital in Sweden, and actually helped the Bluebeam team develop Bluebeam in the beginning. So I got to learn a lot of tips and tricks from him, and kind of worked closely with him for the couple years that I was there. So really learned a lot and kind of have really just grown that at querying. So like most of you said, I think it's an awesome tool. I love that it's a program catered for construction. You know, it's a very construction first program, more so than the Adobe viewers and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of who I am. As Christy was saying, as I go through the presentation, I'm going to give a chance for Carrie and Garrett to introduce themselves. But as I go through the presentation, I'd love it if you guys have questions and want to vocalize them or throw them in the chat. And then hopefully, Christy, you and your team can kind of help me parse through those and bring them up when they come. So, Carrie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Kerry Rentz. I'm currently a project manager at Querying General. I did go to Fresno State. So Sam's one of our Cal Poly guys. So there's always a nice little rival. But yeah, I graduated around 2010. Started out with Hensel Phelps, and then found my way a smaller company in the Bay Area. Spent a few years out there as an assistant PM. I kind of went straight from a field engineer straight up to a assistant project manager. So I went kind of more from field to office side, and then spent a few years out in the Bay Area building large multifamily housing for nonprofits, and then ended up back here in the Valley, and actually got an offer from Querying, and that's what led me back to the Valley here. And I've been with Querying for about over 6 years now. I think going about 7, somewhere around there. So came over as an assistant PM, and in about a year, and I got promoted to project manager. So I've been doing a lot of stuff out of town, mostly in Paso, Nipomo, and a few things locally. But I would say, like, for Bluebeam, for me, we didn't have it in school when I was there, but my first taste of it was with Hensel Phelps. It was kind of one of those, hey, we're using Bluebeam, figure it out. And so I guess you could say self-taught more than anything else. I didn't get the benefit of a $4 billion hospital job like Sam did, but you know, that's what I'm saying. My skills are a little bit lower than you as a guru here. So, but it's definitely a wonderful tool. We use it quite a bit in conjunction with our other programs like PlanGrid and you know, other softwares. And it has a lot of potential, and has actually made our job a lot easier to help visualize, you know, elements for architects and designers and be able to do stuff out in the field. So yeah.
And
Gary, you want to take it away?
Yeah, let's see if my mic is working finally. I feel like it's working half the time. But yeah, so my name's Garrett. My name's Garrett. I'm also with Querying General. I am a estimator there. I've been there for a little bit over 5 years now at this point. I think most people on this call, I think, have seen me speak at Fresno State or at some regards. I was kind of preaching this group this afternoon to one of the senior capstone classes. So hopefully some people shut up from that. I know Liza's in here, but I think she was in here part of this group before. But yeah, so I'm an estimator for Querying General. I kind of touch a little bit of everything as far as projects go for the company. So it's kind of fun to be able to see kind of all aspects of what our company is doing. And yeah, I'm a Fresno State grad, graduated in 2016, and went to one company for a little bit after graduation, and then moved to querying. So that's where I've been.
Good to have you, Garrett. I wanted to just before Sam starts his talk, we've had Garrett actually come and Carrie. I think Garrett more often talking about our estimating and takeoffs. And so probably in the spring, we'll get him roped back in here and talking about that as well. The students really wanted the project engineering series. And so it's nice to have some new faces and new experience. And one of the things I'm going to mention is that Carrie actually is going to come and do a talk towards the end of our speaker series. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that you don't get pulled away for some reason. But he's actually got a drone license. He'll talk a little bit about drones and how to get a drone license, and a little bit about the importance of pictures and video and drones and all that, and the closeout process. So that's coming up here soon. So it'll be interesting to pick his brain and hear more about that. I think it'll be an interesting topic for those of you that are listening and out there here. So let's go ahead and turn it back over to Sam.
All right. Speaking of drones, Carrie, you going to be out there next week?
Yeah, not 2022. I'm going to be here on 2021. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be out there next week.
Yeah, he's our resident expert, so he's going to be out while we're doing our slab on grade core for children's. So I will start. Christy, it looks like you have to allow for multiple hosts on the sharing. All right, there we go. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yeah, kind of gave a little bit of introductions, but I think more so right now the project that I'm working on is out at Valley Children's. We've got really a lot going on out there, which I'll get into. But kind of on the left side here, we've got just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. And like I say, if there's questions that we get completely derailed, but it's good conversation, I'd prefer that than just kind of me giving my spiel up here. So anyway, we're going to kind of talk through roles of the project engineer at Querying, talk a little bit about my current projects, and then maybe some other projects that we've got at Querying, just because it's kind of as an overarching company. Then we'll get into site logistics planning and mobilization. So kind of the specifics on what are site logistics plans, why do we use them, how do we use them, things like that, and then really kind of dig into some of the Bluebeam tips and tricks. I'm hoping that everybody kind of has a base understanding of how to use Bluebeam. So I'm going to kind of skip over some of the easier items, or what I see as the easier items, and kind of get into some of the cooler functions that it's got. And then with that, we'll open it up for a Q&A. But like I say, don't hesitate to kind of jump in and ask questions as we're talking. So with that, roles of a project engineer at Querying. Like I say, I started off as a PE. I've kind of worked my way up to an APM and now PM. And I would say that we've got two different paths at Querying. One is for project engineer, which is kind of more the path of going from project engineer to assistant project manager to project manager. And then we've got field engineer, which that path would go field engineer, assistant super, and then super. So project engineers are more geared towards, I'm going to call it office side, and less towards the field. Some of the roles, responsibilities, I like to think of a project engineer as a project manager in training. So they're really going to touch everything that a project manager does, just kind of in a different way. So they're more geared towards submittals, working with superintendents on RFIs, getting those processed, returned, distributed to folks. Writing subcontracts, I kind of may seem like a boring task, but is something that is probably one of the most important things we do. And I'd say that we get that started day one with project engineers. So writing subcontracts, working out scopes with our subcontractors. And then as the job progresses, going through change orders, putting together change orders, distributing them, and then kind of working on billings a little bit. And all of this, again, is not something that you're going to be doing day one. This is like your full responsibility, no oversight. It's something that you're doing in conjunction with the project team. So your superintendent, project managers that you've got out there. Some of the other tasks that like you'd be assigned with would be working on schedules. So assisting some of the superintendents that we've got. Some of them are better in the scheduling software than others. So I find that a lot of times a project engineer's role is to really to extract the information that superintendents have in their head and put it into a format that's usable and able to be distributed to subcontractors. So master schedule, look aheads, and then all of the fun items like meeting minutes, meeting agendas, running meetings, things like that. And I think that the mobilization and the site logistics plan is definitely something in the vein of the scheduling, where superintendents kind of really lead this drive a lot of times, and project engineers are grouped into that because we do have this skill set of Bluebeam. And I'll say beyond that, I don't think that a site logistics plan is any one person's responsibility. I think it's really a team effort to make sure that this plan that we come up with and that we issue to our subcontractors works for everybody and throughout the job. So with that, I guess I'll pause. Any questions on kind of what project engineers do for querying? I know that was kind of a long explanation and pretty much saying they do everything. And I do believe that that's true. They touch every part of our job, just in different ways.
Hey, Sam, how long do you, and you know, this could be the whole team here from querying, how long do you typically stay in a project engineering position on average at querying?
Oh, there is no set timeline for that. I mean, it's all about your personal growth in that role, and like what if you're really sorry to jump in, Sam, but
no.
There is no set timeline, and you know, you can kind of we're not structured that way for us. I mean, usually I would say there's probably a good couple years, you know, because a lot of times when you're as a PE, you're coming right out of school, maybe off an internship or multiple internships, and you're really getting a grasp of your knowledge base at that point. You know, it's really like full time out there and really understanding us as a company and the role. And sometimes I'll say there's some project engineers that decide they're like, I don't want to be that side. I actually like the field way more, you know, and they want to go more of an FE route or vice versa. I mean, and I was going to chime in on this. What Sam said is like, it's very important, especially in my opinion, that a project engineer should know what a field engineer does and be able to do that role. And, you know, it's not like you're being put in a cubicle and you're just given paperwork all day long. You know, the role is always growing. You're seeing totally different things, and you're spending a lot of time out in the field learning how the work's done, you know, so that way you have a better understanding on how to, you know, talk to and communicate to other trades and even owners and, you know, architects and designers on what situations are. So I guess that's kind of a long answer. So yeah. I know some companies are like, you're 2 years this, you're 2 years that, you're 3 years this. That's not how we work. It's all about your growth. You can go from a field engineer to a assistant superintendent within a year or two if you really have the drive for it, you know. So, but then it could take 3. It just all depends on you, you know, more than anything else. So,
well, in some companies,
kind of that range that you're talking about, Carrie, is, I mean, if someone's looking at this from the outside, I mean, there's no set number of years or you've been here so many months, but kind of that range, that 1 to 3 years. Usually.
Yeah, in some companies, you know, it's really interesting. I have a little bit different experience. I started off as a field engineer working for Fluor. They're a very large global construction company. And they would go field engineer to assistant project manager and then, or assistant construction manager and then construction manager. So it just depends on, I think, the company, you know, and I would say you get more experience in a smaller company than you do sometimes in a larger company, you know, and can move up faster. I don't know if that's your experience or not, you guys, but sometimes you get pigeonholed faster in a larger company.
Yeah, no, let me just put it this way. My first job that I was on was at a large hospital down in Southern California. And I was super disappointed because there was a $300 million tower that was being built. And I got put on the $10 million job in the basement of the hospital.
Oh.
And I learned 3 times as much as the project engineer I sat next to that was working on the tower project, because they had 2 scopes and I had all of them. So it just kind of doing with kind of what you've been given, you know, the best you can. I did see, Jaime, it looked like you had a question.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Would it be okay to ask what are the responsibilities of a field engineer, or like what's like the biggest difference between both of them, a PE and an FE?
Yeah, and I would say that the biggest difference that I see, I think a field engineer is still going to be looking at RFIs, looking at submittals. I don't think that you're really going to get away from that, but the subcontracts, the change orders, the billings side of it is a little bit less on the field engineer and more on the project engineer. And the field engineer is going to be more running subcontractor meetings, kind of even more closely working with superintendents as far as scheduling and QA, QC out in the field, things like that. But I'll be honest, I don't know of too many projects for clearing anyway that we have both a project engineer and a field engineer kind of working hand in hand. Usually we have one or the other, and they're supported by an APM if we've got a field engineer, or if we've got a project engineer, maybe we've just got an assistant superintendent, you know, so kind of not working 2 of them at the same time.
Yeah, it really depends on our project size, you know, and what that type of scope is that we're building or remodeling or something like that. But you're right, Sam. It's not usually both. Some projects do. I mean, I think Pontiac has some situations where they have that and stuff like that. But yeah, you hit it right on the nose. For sure.
All right. Well, with that, I will kind of move into current projects. I guess I'll start a little bit more broad, and hopefully, Carrie, Garrett, you can help me out a little bit with this. But as far as projects that Queering is currently working on, we've got, well, really 3 of them out at Valley Children's. We've got Founders Plaza, which is what I'm going to be talking about mostly today. It's going to be an admin building for them. It's kind of right as you drive into their campus. So for Queering, we're really excited about it because it's a kind of landmark project. You won't be able to go to Valley Children's without seeing our work. And then we've got, we call them landscaping projects, but they're a little bit more than that. It's really the back of the hospital where they do all of their fundraising events. They are, I mean, it's some really cool landscaping that they got on the back there. And they also have play structures and playgrounds for all of their kids and the families that work there. And then we're also doing an infrastructure project at Valley Children's. So expanding and improving all of their roads around the campus. And then Carrie is working on animal control. We've got,
yeah, I'm working on a project for the city of Fresno right now, building a new animal control facility right off of Airways, and so that's pretty much full time. So were we going, Sam, were you wanting to go through like a list of the jobs that we're doing as a company kind of right now?
No, I just some of the cooler ones. I mean, bigger ones that we've got. DSS, we're doing the old Costco.
I mean, obviously
building.
ours are the coolest by far.
Of course, yes, yeah. No, and then I will say too that we do have another office in the Bay Area now that's getting up. That's got some cool hospital projects. I'd say as a company, we probably focus a little bit more on the healthcare side of things and senior living, but we don't pigeonhole ourselves to that and take advantage of different opportunities. So, yeah, with that, I'll kind of dig a little bit more into Founders Plaza and show some images of it. So again, right on the children's campus. This is, it's a full design build project for us. So Queering got given the contract for all the design, all the way through construction. So we hold the contract for the architect, we hold the contract for the civil engineer, all of the MEPs. Valley Children's holds one contract with us for this project. So this is actually a physical model of the building that our architects painstakingly put together. These are all real, like 2-inch tall trees that they put on a foam board. And then obviously the building here, I'll just kind of click through some of these, show a little bit more. 45,000 square foot building. As you can see, most of it is a curtain wall system with metal panels on the end, and then a massive overhang here. And this overhang is actually shaped so that they did solar studies to see where the sun would hit. And so on one side of the building, our overhang is a lot larger than on the other side. And that's just to help with the solar heat gain of the building and help with the demands on the mechanical system within. So the less sun that hits this glass, the less they have to cool on the inside. So anyway, this is the kind of main entrance here. And then just another shot of the end showing the metal panel and the curtain wall mullion system.
Hey, Sam, did you mention what this building will be used for?
I may have earlier. It's going to be an admin building. So they are trying to consolidate a lot of their services. So their HR, their accounting, their revenue cycle. Some of them they have within the building, which is probably some of the most expensive real estate that you could have within an active hospital. So they're trying to move those people that don't need to be in an OSHPD rated building out to here. And then they've got some services in River Park that I know that they're looking to consolidate here as well. So that is the Founders Plaza. The other project that I'm going to talk about today is going to be the landscaping project. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a clue as to what I'm talking about when I say landscape, because it's not really just landscape. This is right tucked up against the hospital, is really a cool playground for all the kids and family members to use. And I'll kind of get into it as we get further, but it's been a really interesting project because of where it's physically located. Christy, do you guys talk much about OSHPD work?
You know, I
that?
don't typically in my classes, you know, I think we would if we had a project that was, you know, a hospital type project, but we don't. Now, other classes, maybe some of you guys that have had other classes, because I teach like scheduling and estimating, and 150, which is a building construction project class. You know, somebody may pick a hospital to do, but it could be other professors that actually focus in on that. But so you might want to explain it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So Valley Children's is technically considered a level 1 OSHPD building, and OSHPD is OSHPD. It stands for Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. And basically the whole reasoning behind OSHPD and kind of how I explain it to people is that with all of the earthquakes that we experience in California, when an earthquake hits, there's one building that you want to still be standing and functioning. And I think the end functioning is important, and that's a hospital. So there's a lot of different codes and more strict inspection that goes into hospital construction, and that's all governed underneath OSHPD. So there's when we talk about an OSHPD project, it's a little bit on a different level than most of the other ones that we do. So just kind of some information there. Oh, sorry. So the next one that I've got that we'll kind of go through, and I'll use those two projects to kind of talk about site logistics. We'll talk about what a site logistics plan is, when we should make it, what goes into it, how do we use it, and then how do we actually build it in Bluebeam. So a site logistics plan, and you're seeing one here to the right side of the screen, is basically a plan that shows where everything on the site is going to go, right? So for the case of Founders Plaza, we obviously know we've got our building here, right, that we're going to be putting in. We've got a parking lot that we can see on the drawings, and then we've got a large like patio space out in front and behind this building. So simple to figure out what it is, less simple to figure out how we're going to build it and how logistically we're going to access and support this building. So what we do typically is we'll put together a site logistics plan showing everything that we're going to have on site and kind of the sequence of how we're going to build it, how we're going to access it. Here. So basically how we're going to get crews to the building, material, and equipment, and how it'll maneuver around the site. When we should make the site logistics plan, this honestly is, if it's the first thing you do as a project team, I think that you're in a good spot. And I'll say that for a couple different reasons. Usually the first thing you do is you make a schedule, right? For a job, or you're putting together an estimate, or kind of when you're thinking about the project, those are the two things that go hand in hand, are cost and schedule, right? So that's fine and good, but if you're not thinking about how you're going to build and how you're going to access and like which direction you're going to build this building in, 1, 2, 3, and making sure that you can physically do that, you're going to be put behind both on the schedule side and your estimating side. So I would say if you can do this probably almost before you build your schedule, build your site logistics, think about how you're going to build the building, and maybe do it hand in hand, where you're doing your site logistics and then incorporating that into your schedule. And then the second portion of this is the cost side of your site logistics, right? And for instance, I'll give you on this one right here. Our scope of work is, if you kind of follow my hand, and hopefully you guys can see my mouse, our scope of work is outlined here, kind of comes around here, and then up around this temporary parking lot that we built, right? And one of the last things that I put into the estimate as we were doing the pre-con on this was this parking lot. We almost had a $30,000 scope gap for this temporary parking lot that my superintendent had in his mind from the beginning, but hadn't expressed it in a site logistics plan. So I didn't, as a PM, know that I should be picking up money to put a temporary parking lot there and then strip it away at the end of the project. So it's important that we get these logistics plans put out first for the schedule, and then secondarily so that we can make sure that we've got our cost put in there appropriately for some of the temporary measures that we're going to put in. So that's kind of the big win. Yeah.
One of the things that maybe you could talk a little bit about too is, I teach the scheduling class and the estimating classes and project controls. And one of the things that we're talking about right now is productivity, and how important it is to set up your logistics plans so that your job site's productive. So maybe you could touch a little bit on that, just on the idiosyncrasies of, it seems so simple, but you don't want people, like I tell them, you don't want people walking clear across your campus or your project to go to the bathroom in your porta potties, or you need to make sure you think of those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you want ideally everything right up next to the building, but you kind of have to manage that with what actually makes sense to put it right up next to the building, right? We did on one of my past projects, we've done studies on, we prefabbed versus building it out in the field. So it really makes a huge difference on where you can put your material and how long it takes you to get to your material, and kind of the flow that you have to go through to get from there. So for instance, if we've got our material laydown over here, right? And if we tell the subcontractors that, hey, this is your only material laydown that you can possibly have, like this is going to be a long trek for them to get back and forth between these two, right? So what we do is, okay, yeah, we've got this material laydown, but this is for bulk material that we're then going to move into the building and then shake it out from there. So we want to get everything so that it's got a spot on site, because what we don't want to do is have, what we don't need to do on this project is have just-in-time deliveries. So we've got a large site that we've accounted for a lot of material laydown. But if you notice, kind of what takes priority here is the access coming through here so that they can get up close to the building with anything that's being delivered that needs to go into the building, right? So Christy, I think you're 100% right that you really kind of have to think about how long it takes to get material from one spot to another, make sure you're not moving it 2, 3, 4 times. And then your crews, make sure that they're set up in a spot that they don't have to walk from here all the way over to here to go to the bathroom, you know? So right now, kind of how this one lays out anyway, is our trailers are right here, so that we've got a short walk to the building. I don't think we really actually even show our toilets on this one, but currently we've got them set up right here, and as the building kind of progresses, we'll probably move a couple closer to it. And that right now is just because things are so mobile out here that it doesn't really make sense to set up anything out here because we're tearing through the dirt so much. But as the job progresses, this logistics it'll kind of morph a little bit to what works best for the project, so that we're not shipping material back and forth across or having people walk back and forth across.
Yeah, Sam, that's a great point. See, you gotta remember that this is like a perfect scenario idea. So on the construction project, the site logistics is always evolving to the need of the job itself, right? So you might be storing lumber on one side, but still working on concrete on another. You know, so there's going to be things that are going to be shifting around, blocking, you know, having to move for access. And you know, that the whole dotted line here, I was like, the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, you guys plan to take, you know, 53-foot trailers in there with material to be able to unload and turn that truck around and get back out, because you can't block the hospital traffic. So you have to take that into account. Right. So I mean, there's all kinds of different scenarios you have to, you know, work through this, and situations are going to change it. The fence is going to move, you know, so it's you know, these are the wonderful things that we work through every single day. You know, we're field engineers get to work through every single day too. So, yeah.
And Sam, how, you know, I'm not sure because I haven't been out to Valley Children's in a while, but how does being close to the hospital affect like the logistics of your plan here? You know, are you limited for your hours and just your hauling things in and out of there? Maybe you could describe how that's affecting the hospital.
Yeah. So luckily we are not really limited to our hours. We are on this project far enough away from the hospital. And let me just gonna open this in just a second, but I'll get it open right now to kind of show a little bit more of where we're at here. So backing up here. So this is the 41 coming up here, real grainy here. As you're driving down the 41, you can see it up on the hill, Valley Children's. So in order to get to Valley Children's, you come off the freeway here and then drive down Children's Boulevard. So once you're going through Children's Boulevard here, we actually make our crews go past the main entrance to the hospital and come on this little side road and then wrap around and come back this way. And the reasoning for that is, as Carrie mentioned, is we don't want to be on this road because this is where the ambulances come, right? And the absolute last thing that we want to do is to have a 53-foot truck that didn't know where it was going, that got stuck on this road, and there's an ambulance coming behind with a kid that needs help in this building, and we're hindering that, you know? So we talked with Valley Children's about what their current ambulance path of travel is, and we're doing our best to avoid that. You know, what will have to happen is we will have to make a tie-in in this street, so our site utilities tie in here. So that's something that we're currently coordinating with Valley Children's, like, hey, when we make this tie-in and we tear up this road, what are your ambulances going to have to do? Right, so that's kind of just another step to this logistics. Like Carrie was saying, this is our ideal logistics, but we're going to have 2 weeks where we have to flip that on its head as we're tying in utilities.
Sounds like Sam's gonna be working nights.
Well, I wanted to point out something to the students, because I know in my classes, we do spend some time on site logistics in our ABC team for the building construction competition. We're kind of working on logistics right now. And this is a good example of how a Google map view is very effective as a supplement to your logistics plan. So sometimes, you know, you may have to go off of a Google map view because there's no site plan, but sometimes it's good to use both. And maybe, you know, if you guys have anything to add to that, you can too.
Yeah, I would say that obviously our site logistics here is 2 pages, one with the Google Maps. And the big reason for this is because we really needed to point out that they need to come around this way. But it also just kind of gives them a visual of where they're at. It helps people understand it a little better. Sometimes when you get a set of drawings, you'll have guys show up and they don't know which way is north, you know, or where they're at. So it does help to kind of provide some context for where they're at. Jared, I see you got a question.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because Valley Children's is a specialty hospital, is it possible to do a shutdown to perform that tie-in? Or is that something that you guys would prefer to avoid as much as possible?
As far as shutting down for like the utilities or shutting down access?
Shutting down access.
So Children's is a specialty hospital, but it is still I forget their rating, but basically they have to have access at all times to their building. And right now, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it would be a heck of a lot easier if they had a third option, but right now they've got 2 options: Peck Boulevard, which is this road right here, and Crockett. So when we shut down one, we limit them to one. You know, so it's not the most ideal, but no, they will have to have access 24/7. Jared, did you have something else, or is that still the? I'm sorry, I don't get people that raise their hand in my meetings.
I have to.
No, you're good.
I have to manually lower it, otherwise it just stays there. But yeah, you answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm usually working with people on Zoom that aren't. Carrie and Garrett have been in some of our company meetings. I feel like 40% of the people in our company, just getting them on mute is an act of God.
It can be. It can be.
If you just continued with the presentation and didn't address the hand, I was okay with that too. I didn't I didn't have to have that answered. Right. Just curious.
Oh no, you're good. I like this back and forth, and it looks like Ray's got something.
Yeah. So for like a site logistics plan, should you always have like that view that you have right now, or like? Because I don't know. If you got like a.
I'm sorry, Ray. You're kind of going in and out. I got half of that.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, for like the site logistics plan, should you have like that? What is like a satellite view that you have pulled up right now? Would that be like one of like the best ways to show it, just because it shows like the building and like the actual roads?
It can be helpful in a certain situation like this where we want to express something given the roads kind of outside the bounds of a project. If you're more concerned with just your project site and you got a drawing that can show that, then I think you could probably just go with the drawing version of it. But we were kind of trying to get a little bit wider than what our drawing set showed. So that's why we went with the satellite view on that one.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So what goes into a site logistics plan? And I'm kind of just gonna roll through some items here that we like to include on our site logistics plans. Not all of them are shown here on the legend. Every project is a little bit different, but some of what you're going to want to make sure that you include for, obviously your toilets, those are number one, and you will have people telling you if you forget those. You get all your fencing, where you're going to set your trailers, where your material laydown is going to be. So that's sometimes both on the job site and within the building. Where are your trades going to park? Right, depending on the size of job that you have, it may be 10 people, it may be 100 people, and conversely, it may be a big open job site like this, or it may be something like we were dealing with downtown where there is no parking, you know, and you've got to bus people in or find a shuttle service that can get them from a parking lot that's 2 miles away to your job site. So every job's got kind of a different situation there. Some of the other things you can show are your SWIP, so your Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, some of the items there. If you've got a crane on your job site, I'd say that crane placement is going to be critical, both making sure that you're not on top of anything, but also making sure that you've got room for a crane and what kind of crane, what track is it going to be taking. So on this one, it's just kind of generally shown, but our proposed crane placement is all going to be on this side of the building, right? And this is an early logistics plan that we put together. So our superintendent has 1, 2, and 3. It turns out there's going to be 14 different spots that crane is sitting along this as it's moving. So it's, like I say, early, but we're getting that kind of a little bit more fine-tuned, making sure that where they're sitting this crane doesn't impact our slab on grade, because a lot of times cranes will want to do that. They want to go on your slab, and usually structurally that's a no-no. Sometimes it's not. But then also, I mean, if you've got a different kind of crane, so if you have a tower crane, right, making sure that the radius isn't going to be over Peck Boulevard, right? Or if your tower crane does have a radius that's going to swing out this way, making sure that there's limiters put on it so that it can only swing to a certain degree one way or another, right? I had a job down in Southern California where we had a tower crane that part of our logistics plan was we had to tie up that tower crane every night so that it was pointed in a certain direction, because we had helicopter traffic that was landing on a helipad like 40 feet from the edge of our job site. So little things like that kind of putting together these plans really bring out some of those questions.
That's a great comment, Sam, because like we just talked about a minute ago, this is a hospital, so you have to notify the hospital when you're going to be swinging cranes and where at for how long for their helicopters and everything, you know, that are going through. And usually a lot of times they might even require a specialty pick plan from the crane manufacturer supplier on where and how and what their swings are and everything like that. So there's a lot that goes into these kind of things. Sorry, looked like there might have been a question.
Yeah, Jaime.
Yeah, I was gonna ask before I forget, and I don't know if we're gonna cover this later on in the presentation, but we recently went to like XCon, and they were explaining but never really showed how to scale the different elements in the site logistics plan. I don't know if that's something that you guys usually do, like, you know, like with the cane, maybe getting the radius pretty accurate, right? How, as well as all the other components in the site logistics plan.
Yeah, no, that is one of my tips and tricks that I got on the site logistics. So I'll make sure that I cover that after I kind of roll through this section 3. And I'll kind of start moving through this a little bit quicker so that we can get to the fun part of the Bluebeam. So anyway, some other items to include on your site logistics plan: construction entrance, where crews are going to be in, site signage, so where you're going to put all of your whether it be Queering mandated signage or Valley Children's mandated signage, kind of where you're going to put that. Emergency muster point. This is an important one. So if something does happen, where's everyone going to meet? Personnel list. So this is another one that almost as important as your crane placement is. If you've got a building that's going to need a personnel lift, where does it go? Right? Because you don't want it to be in a spot in the building where it's going to impact how you build the building, but you also don't want it to be all the way in the end so that people have to walk all the way across. So just kind of some things to consider there. Building scaffold could be something that you include on your site logistics, site lighting, and then obviously your path of travel on the job site. So those are kind of most of the items that we usually try to make sure that we've got covered, or if they're applicable to our job site, that we've got on here.
Sam, did you say power?
I didn't, but that's a great one, Kerry. Is your temporary power or your permanent power, depending on how you're going to get that to the building. Mm-hmm. Whether you're going to have a generator or you've got some other means of providing power to the project, either temporarily or getting your permanent power sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I see it down here in your Bluebeam tips, but I was going to mention, the idea of a site logistic plan like this too is to try not to change the permanent elements. Like, so if you got to put power poles on a job to bring temporary power to your facility or your build, you obviously don't want to put that pole somewhere where you're going to have to pave a parking lot in 6 months. You're trying to figure out your lengths and your logistics around trying to maybe land them in planners or something else that you can move or work around until the very end of the job, until you can pull that piece out, because that runs into, having to pay for a parking lot twice when you barely captured it once, so in that temporary, if you have to move that parking lot, now you're hitting your budgets again, and it becomes a bigger deal, to kind of think about. So there's a ton of different little elements that go into these things.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. All right. How do we use a site logistics plan? So obviously we use it as a project team to kind of coordinate how this job's going to be built, where we're going to set everything as we mobilize, kind of looking at it big picture like that. We also use it in every single one of our subcontracts that we send out. I say that every single one of the subcontracts I've sent out for Queering has a site logistics plan as a part of that, so that when you're, and let's just throw this out there, your trades, right? If you were to say parking was all the way over here, right, and they don't have that figured for their crews to walk a quarter mile to get to your job site, like that could be a legitimate cost. But if you have a site logistics plan included in your subcontract that shows where they're going to be parking, and that was included at the time of bid, it's a powerful tool to have to educate them on how they should be figuring on doing the job as well. Not just keeping that to ourselves as a general contractor. And it's also something to educate trades as they come on site. So you've got your crews coming who've never been to the job, don't know what the job is, right? They're a carpenter or a concrete mason or something. So we put all of our site logistics in our orientation so that they can get a lay of the job, know where to park, know where the toilets are, where to meet up in the case of an emergency, things like that. So it's a useful tool that can be used in a lot of different ways. And I'll say kind of a last way to use it is to really show phasing. And I'll just real quick flip through the phasing for our landscape project. And this one was interesting because we are up so close to this hospital, and they need egress from the hospital. So again, kind of similar, a lot of the same points showing, and this was a simpler project, so we didn't need as many legend items. But this area back here, we're kind of pinned in the hospital, we're near the hospital. So instead of just having a one-page logistics saying, hey, this is where crews are going to park, we actually used this as a tool to show Valley Children's how we were going to build this and still maintain egress from their building. So that's their exiting from the building, right? Because we've got, I don't remember how many doors here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 doors that exit from this building that we needed to allow access to here while we're trying to build all of this. So what we did is we showed a broken down version of this where, hey, this area in red, we're closing these doorways off and we're going to build this, right, while leaving exiting this way, right? And then in the next phase, we're going to flop it so where we're building this and allowing for them to exit this way, right? And then the last one was, hey, this is how we're going to do the remainder of the project. You'll have everything back up and open again and exiting through this way while we're doing all of this work in the center here. So less of a, I mean, it is a logistics plan, but also to help show clients and our trades phasing of the project.
So Sam, and I can relate to this because I do a lot of scheduling myself, but whether it's a master schedule, or like an executive summary schedule or a site logistics plan like this, it really becomes a communication tool with these high-end clients. And I would consider, this is like a landmark type project. But if you do these kinds of projects, it may not, every job you should be communicating with your client, but it's more so, I would say, if you're working on this type of a project, or maybe you're up in San Francisco or the Bay Area and you've got a landmark project there, you're going to see a lot of these logistics plans being utilized for the phasing to be able to communicate with everybody on the job, because it's easier to understand this than it is a schedule. I think, it's sometimes more difficult to show them a schedule.
Yeah.
You also use this
make
to
sure
build
they
your
obviously
schedule.
tie together, but
you're right, Carrie. Yeah, you do. You use this to do your phasing, and building your schedule. So they kind of go hand in hand. And I actually encouraged Professor Hyatt to include logistics planning in our scheduling class, because I think it's just so important, and they're fun and creative, and a great tool for the students to learn, an additional tool to kind of like their schedule repertoire.
no, I think what I like about logistics plans, and it is similar to scheduling, is it's such an art to it. There's no right answer. It's just the answer that's going to work best for the general contractor, and obviously the client, comes first in this, because if we had this to ourselves and we would have done it, we would have just done all of it at once, but that doesn't work for the client. So you kind of got to bend and work your logistics plan to make sure it works for them.
An interesting little piece that pushes it before even construction of a project even starts is a lot of clients actually require a logistics plan as part of the bid package for the project to even get the project, which has to link to your schedule as well. So we have to think about these things before we've even put a number to it, or before we even kicked a stone on the site, because we don't even have the job yet, because they want to see how we're actually going to build it to make sure that we've actually put some thought into it. So
That's
these are becoming
interesting.
more and more popular, especially for public projects, a lot of those.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know when I teach CM 150, each of the students has to pick a different, they go out onto Builders Exchange and pick their own project. And I know Jaime and Jared and some of the people in this class, in this talk, have done that. And it's actually, they have to do a proposal, like if you're going to a negotiated bid, with their logistics plan, what their schedule's going to be, and I'm sure you guys have done that so many times, So it's like, you got to you got to visually prepare it before you even build it, you know? And you probably do those all the time.
Well, and it also helps the estimating department. I don't know if Garrett's still on or not, but if they see that we have a particular way that we think it needs to be built, they might now know that they need to, you know, like just looking at that logistic one that Sam was showing, what I picked up on is you're moving the fencing about 3 times into different orientations, right? So that means you got to have some laborers come out and move the same fence 3 times. So that's different. That's at a cost. That's all kinds of different things. But now you know you need to bid it that way, right? So just because that's how we sold it, otherwise we get hit 2 or 3 times if we have to move it forward, you know. So it really starts driving what the actual project flow and estimate could actually really impact too. So especially, you know, paving operations and other things like that too. So
no, I'd say what kind of most impacted that backyard of the project there was the concrete, you know, making sure that our concrete subcontractor didn't think that they could have this whole job site to do all at once, right? They knew that, hey, I'm going to have to pour this little bit of concrete, which no one has ever been productive pouring a small amount of concrete, right? And if we wouldn't have told them that, they would have come back and said, well, I didn't figure on pouring it in 4 different mobilizations. It's going to cost more to do it this way. But because we had that figured out early on, they were able to include that in their price, and it's not a hiccup for the project, you know? So, yeah, schedule and cost, I mean, a lot of different ways it can be helped out by a good logistics plan.
Is that more of that special concrete by Heritage Bowmanite back there? Yeah, okay.
It is. Yep.
It's nice stuff.
Yeah.
So.
It is very nice stuff. So, all right. With that, we'll get into more of the Bluebeam here. So how to build a site logistics plan. I am going to do my best here to walk through a kind of a mock building of a logistics plan. So kind of tips and tricks here. So first off, I would say that if you're going to be using a page from the drawings, you want to make sure that you use a page that kind of encapsulates everything that you need it to, while also being simple enough to not include a bunch of information that's not going to make any sense on a logistics plan, right? So I combed through my set of drawings, and there was really one that was good, that didn't have a lot of information, but showed the whole project scope. And that happened to be the erosion control or SWIP plan, right? So what I would do and what I would recommend doing is taking this and cutting this portion of it out of here and moving it to a different document. And the reason I say that is I want this logistics plan to be sized a certain way, right? So I want all of my logistics plans to be able to easily print on 11 by 17, right? Because that's the most used kind of format that we have, because we don't have large format printers on our job site. So someone needs a logistics plan that they're able to read and see. I'm going to print it on 11 by 17, and I don't want to have to worry about the formatting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this logistics plan, or this plan here. I'm going to come to the cut content, or if you want to use the shortcut for a snapshot, you can just do G. Click and drag. I'm just going to kind of get a rough idea here of what I need. Let that do its thing, copy. Right, and then I'm going to come up here and create a new sheet. And as I'm going through this, I just want to say there's a lot of people on here that use Bluebeam. If someone has a better or cooler way of doing something, I am 100% all ears. So anyway, I'm going to create my 11 by 17 sheet and paste it. Let it kind of come over. You'll have to forgive me, I don't have the absolute fastest computer here. And then size it so that it'll fit on this 11 by 17.
What you could also do, Sam, is if you wanted to be able to keep the scale of the original drawings, you could easily just cut all the content from the page that you don't want and then just keep the content that you do. That's what I've done in the past.
Yeah. Yep. That is another way of doing it. Is there a way to get that to scale properly to like an 11 by 17 print, Garrett, that you know of?
You can just through the print functions. You can have it print to scale and just scale to 11 by 17, and that should work. That should work properly as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that is another way of doing it. Thank you, Garrett. So what I've got here is I've got this snapshot that I've put onto this, sized it how I want it. So I'm going to start marking this up. So what I want to do first is flatten this individual markup. So I'm going to right click on it and then flatten. So now I've got this on my sheet. A lot of times there will be stuff on here that you don't want. So what I do is I'll go through and I'll look at it and I'll kind of clean it up a little bit. So for instance, I don't need, I'm sorry, I've got a fun bar here. Yeah, that should work better. I don't need this showing 20-foot setbacks, right? So I'm going to just come in here and cut this guy out of here. And it'll cut it. So you can spend some time cleaning it up, getting a version of it that you want. So I would kind of go around and do that. Do my best to kind of get these out of here, just so that there's not a bunch of information that you don't need. All right. So now the next thing that I would do is, and this is, I think it was Jaime that asked the question, is really get into the scaling of this. So I'm going to start by scaling or calibrating this drawing. And again, I've copied and pasted this. I've used the corners to scale it. So it's all going to be a different scale here, not set to the scale that's shown on the drawing. So I'm going to have to scale it off of something that's actually on the drawing. So in this case, there's a 20-foot setback. I'm going to use that as my scaling tool. And usually, just kind of best practice here is you want to use the biggest dimension that you can find on the sheet. That will create the least error. So if you're using a 2-inch dimension, you could be 1.75 inches, and that's oh man, I picked some bad numbers, but that's 17%, 15%, whatever the number is, percent off. Whereas if I'm at 20 foot and an inch, that's next to nothing from a 20-foot measurement. So pick the biggest one you can find.
I'd also mention stay away from fractions of inches and stuff like that on there. Try to find a whole number. It'll just make it a lot easier for you.
Yep. So from there, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start with, let's start with my construction trailer, right? So if you look up here, and let me just kind of take one more step back. If people are seeing toolbars differently than mine, I've got mine set to review. If you look at the profiles, I've got it set to review advanced. There's a million different ways you can modify the toolbars here, but this is kind of my go-to, my base that I use is the review advanced because it gets most of the tools into spots that make sense for me. So with that, I'm going to come up here to the scaled drawings. So these orange markups here are drawing to scale. So I want a rectangle because I'm going to draw my project trailer. So I click on that and then I come over and I click once and then drag, and it's going to pop up with boxes that show the actual size that I'm going to draw this to. And it knows the size because I've scaled the drawings. So I'm going to go with a 60-foot trailer. So it's going to be 60-foot width, and I'm going to hit tab to get me over to the height. And the height is going to be 13 foot. And the rotation, I don't know what rotation I want it at right now. I just know that I want a construction trailer that's 60 foot by 13. So then I'm going to hit enter. And I've now got a box that's 60 foot by 13. And Jaime, you can do the same thing if you have a crane swing path here. So you can do the sketch to scale. If you know what your crane's radius is, you can draw this in at a 150-foot radius, and boom, I've got the radius that is going to reach. And I know that if I set it where I set it, I'm going to have a problem hitting this side of the building with my crane. So I'm going to delete that. And then what I'm going to do, and this is something, there's a couple different ways to create your legend for this, but I'm going to do what I think is kind of the cooler way here. And I'm going to check my box. I'm going to come over here to settings, and I'm going to relabel the subject and label with construction trailer. Okay, and then I can just leave it. All right, so I've got my construction trailer set up. I'm going to rotate this to here because I think that's going to make more sense with my layout, right? And then my next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in my fence line for this. And you can use a markup because I think a lot of this, the site logistics plan is a visual tool. The markup tools will work just fine here to show that. But just to kind of add another layer to it, what I would actually do is use an actual dimensioned tool. So the poly length, it's going to give the same properties as your normal line, but it's also going to measure the length of the fence that you're drawing, right? So when your project manager comes up to you and was like, hey, how many lineal feet of fence do we have? You can click on it and say, oh, boom, we got that much. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to adjust my settings before I do anything. I want it to be a green fence because we're going to put green privacy screen on it, and that makes it look real to me. So change everything here to green, and then I don't want it to show the caption on there because I just want the actual tool. So then I'm going to start drawing it. And on this one, we're actually going to run our fence this way, around, and you'll want to be precise on this. So you're not just going to want to click and show something that doesn't mean anything. You want to actually show where the fence is going to be put as best you can so that you can hand this off to someone and they can put the fence up based off of it, right? So I'm going to do the opposite of what I just said to do and just kind of click and drag here, get it around this side. This looks about right. Then come back over here, come here, then get it to this point. Yeah, Jaime, what you got?
Yeah, I got two quick questions. The first one is like when you do the poly length tool, is there a way to do it and kind of set it without closing the full shape? Or do you always have to close it completely?
Yes, so the poly length tool, so this one here, if you click, you can click wherever you want to and then hit enter and it'll end that tool.
Okay. Oh, and then my other question was when you quantify the fence, is there like a percentage you use for like an error, you know, like a 5% or?
So and I'll be honest, on fencing, it probably isn't going to get that particular. When I make the phone call to these guys to, hey, we've got 2,600 lineal feet of fence, I'm going to say bring 20 extra panels or something like that so that we do have that little bit. And what they'll end up doing on fencing is they'll bring out more and then only charge you for what they actually physically put in place. So I typically try to have them just bring more and then we'll figure out how much we actually got when we get there. But yeah, that's a great point that when you're ordering things like that, you want to make sure that you've got some sort of waste factor in there, some sort of error factor. So anyway, so then we've got the fence that we drew in. We can do, I mean, whatever we want to throw in here, we can go through that whole list or look at the other items. But what I'll say is that the next step is, yeah, cool, we've got this. What are these things, right? How do we show what they are? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the shortcut V or the select tool, and I'm going to select everything on here. Actually, let me take one more step back here. I got to relabel this. So the fence, I have my fun subject line of OA4A. I'm going to change that to site fence. And then just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to change the label as well to site fence. Right? And then I will select everything. And then right click on any one of them. And then I'm going to create a legend. And then I'm going to click and drag where I want that legend. And it creates this legend for me. And I don't care about the quantity or the unit. So I'm going to come over here to this right side where I've got my settings opened on my legend property. And I'm going to edit the columns. I'm going to take off the quantity and the unit and hit OK. And then I don't care about the description, so I'm going to take that off. And then I don't want to show the title. So there, now I've got a legend that shows my construction trailer and my site fence to match the properties of that. And then I would just continue to build this out with all of the individual items I need. Obviously, again, working with superintendent, project manager to kind of work through these and make sure that I've captured everything that I need to capture, make sure that I check the budget, and make sure that we got the budget for these items that I'm putting in here. And then, yeah, just kind of make sure that you're including as much information as you can. So with that, let me, a couple other tools that are pretty cool that were used really kind of when I was showing this one here. So site logistics, what I did here is I actually took a portion of the drawings and copied and pasted it into this set here, but I wanted to show that it was under construction, which was red. So I actually changed the colors on my copy to a red. And it's a cool tool to help in some cases. So how you would do that is if you wanted to say you've got another construction entrance here, which they're designating by these red rocks. I'm going to take a snapshot of this, right? And say we've got a third construction entrance, but this one isn't going to be rocks. It's going to be a rumble strip. So I want to show that in red on this side. And again, I'm just kind of making things up here. So just to kind of show how to do some things, not necessarily things that would make sense for this logistics. But I've copied and pasted this from my snapshot. So I'm going to right click on it, change color. And then I'm going to change this sometimes may take a couple steps, but I'm going to change all the blacks to red and then hit OK. And then now I've got another markup here. And if I want to, I can add properties to this markup. So I can say this is going to be not a snapshot, but a rumble strip. And I want to, I'm seeing that, but I want to put that onto my legend that I've already created. And now we've got a legend that shows the rumble strip. I mean, I could keep going for days, Christy. I think this is kind of a good start on how to do this. I will say that your site logistics plan is a tool that's going to be seen in front of not only your subcontractors, but ownership. So you want to do your best to make sure that it's a professional looking document and not something that was just slapped together. So the more time that you can spend formatting and making sure that things look good is time well worth it on these things.
One thing, Ray, go ahead and ask your question. It looks like Ray had a question.
Yeah, so it's for Carrie or Sam. How or what's the longest time you guys have spent on a site logistics plan?
Oh, I try to keep track of things like that. Usually
I can tell you, mine's gonna go faster now with this legend tool. That Sam just showed me. I'm in awe of that.
Yeah, that one's a cool one, because the other way that you'd have to do it is you'd have to create a text box and create another tool next to it, and then that
Old
was
school
honestly,
over here.
that is how this one got built. But there are always better ways of doing things. So
Ray,
I would say you're.
Oh, go for it, Sam.
No, I was just gonna say it shouldn't take less than an hour if you're doing a good one. So it should take a while if you're going to put it together a full thought out one, and it should be something that you come back to days later to kind of revisit and rethink and rework for something like this.
I'd say, it shouldn't take you too long, but in an ideal scenario, you would be doing this with your superintendent or your whole team and getting all buy-in at one time. Just how, Sam mentioned in the beginning that, his super always intended to have a parking lot, but didn't tell him that till the end. Like doing this stuff together, you might realize that, hey, what we just laid out really doesn't work, 8 months from now. Like, do we need to change this? Somebody will think of something. So it shouldn't take you more than a couple hours total. I mean, but in a pinch, you did it done pretty quick.
Yeah, I will say, to do it right, it should take a little bit, but.
And I'm curious, you guys, since COVID hit, do you ever use Studio to do the site logistics so that you don't have to be in the same place? Or do you typically get together and do it collaboratively, like sharing with a projector or something?
It is a Studio is a good tool that I wish that people in our company that had input in this would be able to use. So I'm specifically talking about a lot of our superintendents who are a little bit more experienced. They a lot of times don't use Studio the same as we could, or Bluebeam for that matter. So I'd say that's probably our stumbling block for this. But on the other side of that, Christy, I was thinking about including a Studio portion as part of this, that you could create a site logistics plan with your team in a Studio session, have everybody marking things up. But I would say that still, even with that, I think communication through that process would be vital, because you don't want too many people having their hands in something that, and moving things here or there when someone had a thought behind why they placed something somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, we're lucky enough to the point, I think, where we have a particular conference room or two in our office that are rather large, that we can have small groups and be totally spaced out with large monitors and kind of do some of this stuff together as a group. But I mean, our supers are pretty good at Zoom now, so, like, and, we've had a lot of scenarios where right now, luckily, during this pandemic, a lot of our projects were already in pre-con and we didn't have to do too much startup for some of this. Cause, some of these take, Sam might have made his logistics plan a year and a half ago before before the job ever started too. So as it evolved, but yeah, what was that, Sam?
No, I was just kind of talking about Zoom. This whole building that we've got here, and again, we got the contract day one, so was fully designed via Zoom. We use BIM 360 for file coordination, and I met the architects for the first time as we were pouring foundations face to face. So it's how we've had to do things has definitely changed. Studio is a useful tool that we use in certain situations, but really, if you can get one person working on something, putting information in and having the conversation, I feel like a lot of times the conversation part of it is almost as important as the end product.
Well, and Sam, I mean, I don't know about Carrie and Garrett, but it sounds like you're pretty proficient at Bluebeam. And so a lot of companies, I know, my expertise is scheduling. So I get in and do these collaborative sessions and I'm driving it. So a lot of times, especially these young kids that are coming out into the industry. And if they're good at this kind of thing, you'd be doing a lot of this with the superintendents and you'd be driving it with them kind of giving you input. And I'm sure, Sam,
right.
You probably get the lucky job of doing a lot of this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. It's never fun to be doing it on the fly when someone's giving you stuff because it never seems to work when you try to do it that way. But yeah. No, it is where they'll rely on you. And
Sam, do you remember how many hours Steven did? So Steven Garcia was our pre-con guy on this job early on, and he got an award a year ago or two while he was doing pre-con on his job because he had like some 3,000 Zoom hours in 1 year alone, just doing Valley Children's coordination. Like every time I saw him, he was constantly on Zoom.
Wow.
With our coordinators.
It was 37 actual days in the year of 2020.
Yeah,
wow.
Some ridiculous amount. Yeah, like it was funny.
Yeah.
And he still does it.
Yep.
Ray,
he's slowing down though, Carrie.
Ray, do you have another question?
Yeah, it's for Carrie. Carrie, how many times have you updated the site logistics plan at the animal control facility?
Man, only a couple times actually. Because when Al and I were putting it together, we thought pretty long term about our layout on that one. So and we're kind of I wouldn't say dodge some bullets, but we weren't able to do temporary power poles and things like that. So we don't really have to move too much. I would say probably by the time we really broke ground and got everything up, I probably changed it about 3 times in some fashion, because I originally played with the idea and the schedule of actually paving the entire project before we even started foundations to get out of doing our SWIP requirements and leaving certain sections of curb and gutter out. And that kind of adjusted our logistic plan, but we sort of abandoned that and then went back to the original kind of concept of it. So I think about 3 times before I finished, I guess you'd say. Still a living document, more or less.
Better question, Carrie. How many times did you have to redo the one in Paso?
Well, I gave up on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily we had a client that didn't really require a updated one quite often. So it was nice.
Jared, did you have a question?
Looks like you got a question.
Yeah.
Yes, this question is for both Sam and Carrie. Same question. Have you guys ever had troubles enforcing your site logistics plan? Or rather, people ignoring it or claiming they're unaware of it or just stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you always get people that want to push the barrier a little bit. So I've had a site logistics plan where it was on a TI project where I actually marked out where every sub's laydown was going to be. So our HVAC subcontractor had this area for laydown and our plumber had this area for laydown. And of course you get the HVAC sub coming in and saying, well, I've got big ducts. Like it's physically bigger. The electrician doesn't need as much room. So I think they always push for as much as they can get. I'd say another one that's constantly getting moved around and questioned is toilet location and parking. Things that are impacting people on a day-to-day basis or things that you're going to get complaints and things. And a lot of times people just take things into their own hand and, well, I'm going to park here anyway, and then you really have to enforce your site logistics plan and say like, no, you're not going to park there. You're going to park over here, so more on that level, less on subcontractors from a company standpoint making decisions, but more on a personal level of people on your job site trying to push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with a lot of that. It's like I said, before, it's a living document, and you could constantly be updating it every time you move a toilet or something like that. There's no real point to doing it after a while in that respect. Logistics on a job site changes constantly. So where you might show a parking lot, at some point you have to pave that parking lot that Sam's showing right here, which he has that on his regional plan as their laydown yard. So at some point, all of that stuff has to move. It has to go somewhere. You see right there, that's that parking lot at the end of the job. So you have to figure out a time, when you have to move all of that. And, guys will say, okay, this is your spot. And then they drop it 6 feet away from where they're supposed to. All right, well, now you got to push it around or something like that. So, I mean, parking is always one that people always we have a difficult time with because they just want to park as close to the building as possible. Designated smoking areas and food areas and things like that are always a constant. And it's always changing based on the building. A lot of guys aren't going to go down 3 stories out of a building to eat their lunch. They're going to hide in a room somewhere and they're going to eat their lunch and we're never going to see them, but we'll find the trash later, but we'll never find them doing it. But, we try to push where we can and give where we can. One thing for Fresno that a lot of other areas don't consider is we have, obviously very terrible summers. So we have to think about shade areas and things like that too. So those are going to rotate based on where the crews are working and, et cetera. So, I mean, you can drill the guys all day long out in the field about it's got to be this exact way. And they're just going to fight you the whole time and you just get a tense sight, so there's always a little give and take, but most people are pretty respectful or, they try to be in most cases, but, you have a few that want to rebel for sure, so.
And I'll say to kind of not to, I feel like we're not showing the most love to subcontractors. There's a lot of times where they've got great ideas on logistics that we didn't think about, I mean, our project team for founders is 4 people. We put a lot of thought into this and tried to consider a lot of different things, but if a subcontractor comes up to us and has a great idea on where they could be storing their material or, I mean, like as long as that idea doesn't conflict with another subcontractor and what they've got to do, I think we're open to it. So it's not necessarily that this is a lock set document here, but it's just a basis so that they understand kind of what our expectations are. And if they've got better ideas, I think we're always open to them.
Absolutely. We don't all the time call them our subs. They're our trade partners, right? We can't build without them. So yeah. We obviously don't, there's, like I said, there's plenty of give and take on all of it. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie.
It's an interesting designation versus calling them subs to calling them trade partners, because the industry is very hierarchical in its way. And when you say trade partners, it's a little kinder, I guess you should say.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's very important. Like we partner with these guys. I mean, a lot of the subs like New England and, Johnson Air or West Tech or like a lot of the subs that we work with or trades that we work with a lot, they really are our partners. They help us design it. They help us work through problems. There's give and take, they bring issues to us and we help them resolve it and vice versa. And we do a lot of work together. We're not here to like put anybody out of business or anything like that. So if they fail, we fail technically.
Yeah.
When you really break that down, we're a non-performing GC. So we want everybody to succeed at their fullest potential 100% of the time. And we're going to do what we got to do. Now, that doesn't mean we give away everything, but we're only as strong as them too, and we're here to help them as every way we can to make sure that they succeed and make money and, look good on their resume too, because they want to say, yeah, we built the Founders Plaza at, we did all the framing out there at Valley Children's, we knocked it out of the park. And, when they're going for a bigger job than they did before, so they don't want us getting a call from another GC and saying, oh, they were terrible, so because we don't want that either. So we're trying to get away from, beating everybody down.
You know what, I just want to jump in here. We have about 10 minutes just so that we can start wrapping things up. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. I had a couple questions. One, if you can go, Sam, to your, I want to say it was a landscaping plan where you had the red and the green. Yeah.
Yeah, let me get to.
And my question was, would you consider doing, or is this in layers, like doing overlays? You know, like if you had like 3 or 4 different plans, would you do it that way?
You can. So I was also considering that, is like this could have been done all in one drawing, you know? And what I find is that it's useful doing it in layers if you're going to be the one using it and presenting it. However, a lot of times when you send this to a client and it's got layers and they're not as versed in layers as others are, that a lot of the nuance to what you've included and what you've done gets lost when the user doesn't know how to use it, basically.
Okay.
So if it's an internal tool and it's a takeoff that I'm working on, or a site logistics or something that I'm working on that's kind of I'm going to use or I'm going to present, I could use all the layering tools. But if it's a deliverable that I'm going to be giving to someone else, I try not to do that, for the reason that a lot of times they don't utilize them the same way I would.
Okay. Good suggestion.
Jaime?
Yeah, if it doesn't take too long, but I saw the way you had the presentation set up, like with all the links.
Yeah.
Would you be able to like run through that really quickly, how you did that?
Yeah. So a couple different ways to do it, but what I would recommend doing and how I did it. Let me unflatten this real quick. And this is kind of just a cheater way of doing it, but right here is a box that has 0 line width to it, and that was flattened. So I put a box just above this Founders Plaza, and I offset it just because it didn't matter. I just needed to click in this general region. And then actually I'll do a new link here to kind of show you. So otherwise I'm kind of recreating. So what is a site logistics plan? I'm going to put a box over this, and then I'm going to make it clear. And there's other ways of doing this. This is just what I find kind of one of the easier ways. And then I'm going to right click and go to edit action. And this will pop up basically, what do you want to happen when you click on that, right? So it could jump to another page in the document. So if I had another, I don't know, if I had a logistics plan that was page 2, I could say jump to page 2, right? Or I can have it hyperlink to a website. I can have it go to a snapshot view, so to a certain portion of the page, or I can have it open a new file. So I'm going to have it do that, and then I'm going to just pick my site progress here, and I'm going to open and hit OK. And while it's unflattened, I'm going to have this little link here, this hyperlink or this lightning bolt. And if I click on that, then you won't see it because it was on my other screen, but it opened this guy up, right? Which is drone footage that Carrie didn't take of Children's Founders Plaza, right? But when I flatten this, so reflatten everything. That went away, and now if I click anywhere in this box, it will open that up.
And I'm assuming all that's blue is just text, and the link is the actual markup, the box.
It is. Now what you can do is you can, if you wanted to, select the text, and you should be able to hyperlink. All right, there's a way to hyperlink text. I'm going to admit I failed on that one tonight, but there is a way to do that.
I think you have to use text box, not typewriter.
Yeah, probably. So
yeah,
if I'd have used text box, I could have linked the box.
So Sam, did you set up a dashboard for your project out there?
No, so we operate mostly in what we call our Q drive. So it's a file structure
Okay.
out there. So there's not really a need for that. We have hyperlinked all of our drawings in Bluebeam. So our drawing set, we open it up and all of the keynotes and everything link to the correct drawing. And that's all through batch linking right here.
Okay. One of the things
And that will take more than 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, and if you you guys went to XCon or may have seen some of the presentations, but if you physically go to XCon, a lot of the companies will set up a dashboard for their project and everything will run through Bluebeam. So the schedule will be hyperlinked out into Oracle P6 or Microsoft Project, or they'll have pictures or their RFIs are hyperlinked out, so you can create a dashboard in Bluebeam for your project. And one of the things that we've been wanting to do, and maybe we can call you and ask you to help us with this, is set up a dashboard for our Bluebeam user group to do just exactly what you're showing. So if we have things like if we have a competition or something, we can learn how to do this kind of thing and be able to have all of our documents right there for us.
Yeah, and I would say the most important part about that when you're getting multiple people that are going to be wanting to access documents is your file structure and how these are linking. Because what this is doing is it's telling it that I want to open a file that is saved, and I'll just kind of show you the file that I've got set up above here. But basically, I'm in one of these. I'm in this one, and it is finding a relative path back to the file that I told it to open. So if I move this file somewhere else, it starts to lose its linking. So how you link them and kind of the file structure setup that you have, and how you show Bluebeam how to do that is important.
So if like we set up all of our files in Google Drive and then had the dashboard up and it linked back to the Google Drive only, we'd be okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's just, there's doing a large scale document like that multiple people are going to be accessing. That's probably the most important part, is making sure that your file structure is sound.
Right.
And that you're not moving things around.
Yeah, if we did a little competition, we could do that though. And it would be easy for the students to get in because they'd all be getting in the same drive as long as it was open share,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it doesn't have to be a file. It can also be a folder. So when you go to that edit action, you can have it, instead of opening up a file, open a folder. So you have all your files there.
Good question there, Jaime. Well, Sam, we sure appreciate you coming, and Carrie and Garrett. I mean, this has been just a very good learning experience, and I'm hoping, my mind's already thinking, I'm hoping that Valley Children's will let us use this, as kind of a learning tool, because you taught us a lot of things tonight, and I'm sure the students that are listening here probably are like, wow, this is some cool stuff. So so we really appreciate it.
No. Not a problem. I mean, I love doing this. Some people make fun of me for how much I like Bluebeam, but I get over it. So love sharing. So thank you guys for having me and having us.
Yeah, we'll probably try and rope you into this again.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Sam, I don't think Matt makes that much fun of you about Bluebeam, does he?
Yeah, he's staring at me most of the time.
Well, this is interesting, Sam. One of the things that I tell the students, and I've used scheduling programs, and Garrett, probably has his, focus. But when you're kind of like, learn a particular software, that especially like a big program like Bluebeam, you're going to be seen, that's going to be a great, hiring tool for you, a marketing tool, whether in the company or if you're going somewhere else. So these are like really great skills to focus in on one thing and learn it really well, no matter how much people make fun of you, you know.
No, they make fun of me. They make me train the company on it, you know. So it's nice.
Well, you do a very nice job.
Good problems to have.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, really, for helping us out, and I'm hoping that the students really got a lot out of it. And I'm sure if the faculty knew you guys were training us on this stuff, they would want to see this too, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. So, yeah. The rest of you have any other questions? We're about 1 minute before our time's up here. Anything probing?
I just want to thank you. It was a very informative, the whole presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You guys are very welcome. Like I say, I enjoy doing these kind of things.
great. Well, thank you so much. And I'll loop back with you, Sam, here maybe in a couple days after the weekend and just touch base and see if you enjoyed it, if you like to come back again or not.
Yeah, I'll tell you the answer is yes. I'm more than happy to.
Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, I'll stick around here if anybody has any questions or anything that they have before everyone takes off. So otherwise, have a great evening, everybody, and thanks for showing up. And
sure, yeah, thanks for having us. You know, we'll be back.
Oh, definitely.
You know, I pop on once in a while, but you know, I'm sure Garrett's in the queue somewhere on this.
Oh yes, you guys have been great.
Yeah. No.
Well, I'll see all of you guys soon, and thanks so much.
No, thank you.
We'll stick around here
Thank
just
you,
to make
everybody.
sure. Yeah.
Sam, I'll see you in the morning. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yes,
and all the
sir. Bright and
information
early.
shared.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, Jared said thank you. Jose said
Thanks,
thank
Jared.
you. Yeah, they really enjoyed it. So we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, everyone.
Night.
Yeah, thanks, Christy.
Right.
Thanks, Sam. I
Thank you. Have a
appreciate
good
it.
night.
Thanks, guys.
Night.
Okay, bye. Okay, it looks like we're gonna finish things up here, you guys. So Ray.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm gonna be messaging you because I'm gonna need help on that. How you did the legend. So I'll be sending you a message.
Oh yeah, that one's a cool one.
Oh yeah,
It is.
It makes it so much easier.
Oh yeah, I had to do
It's
one
a time saver.
I had to do one for one of my classes, and I had to do text box like each time, and I did not know that trick. So that's pretty clean.
Yeah. No, just make sure you're labeling your subject and your the description on it as you're going through, because otherwise it'll get all thrown out of whack. But it is a lot easier.
Yeah, way easier. Like Harry said, it takes out a lot of time.
Yes, it does.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. I look forward to having you in my class.
I look forward to it too. I was gonna ask you about how to like join the bug group at Fresno State. So hopefully I can send you an email here shortly.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you. And we'll do, like I said, we'll recruit in the winter here. So we'd love to have you.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'll be sending you an email.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, you guys have a good night.
Okay, you too. Karina, do you have a question? Too. She might have stepped away by accident. So thanks so much, Sam.
All right. No
problem. It was awesome. Christy. Yeah, we'll see you soon, and I'll touch base next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, bye.